All right, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. We are going to be talking about preparing for a conversion or a new file setup. So I'm Marjorie. I'm the CEO of Fourlane. I love running these weekly webinars. Hopefully you guys like them a lot too. So why are we talking about this? Well, there's two reasons. This is half of the work that Fourlane does, is helping clients either who are in QuickBooks already, right? So they're in QuickBooks Enterprise already and they need to use their system better. And so sometimes when they are in QuickBooks already, we go in and we say, okay, we are going to start job costing, or we're going to start inventory tracking, or we are going to discontinue use of build assemblies because we really should have always been doing these as sales orders because it's a build to order versus build to stock. So anyway, workflow changes, right? This is a big part of why we choose to say, okay, the data the way it is today, is that going to be usable in the future? So new file setup. So people have already been in QuickBooks. And then of course, so many people leave QuickBooks. QuickBooks is usually in a business's journey somewhere. Right, when they either first start up or when they're, they try out QuickBooks and they go and they try out NetSuite and they realize that it's a big pain and then they come back to QuickBooks. So converting data, moving it from an outside system into QuickBooks, people build their own databases. They, start up and make a FileMaker Pro database, or, they build something custom and now they're done with trying to maintain it. So there's lots of reasons why we need to prepare for a conversion. It's basically deciding to eliminate, right? Deciding to eliminate or improve on workflows. Eliminate meaning we're going to eliminate something that we have set up. We're going to eliminate Fishbowl, we're going to eliminate SOS inventory, we're going to eliminate some part of our process and just rely on QuickBooks to do those things because QuickBooks now or has had the features and we just didn't know it. Or we're going to do a new file setup based on existing data. So that's why we're talking about this today. Okay, so I'm going to try and spend most of the time in product as usual, but this one's a little bit weird. This is not me just showing you guys, like here's how to make this work in QuickBooks, but we're going to try to spend as much time as possible inside of QuickBooks as usual. So if you missed any of our previous videos, you can always check them out on youtube.com/Fourlane. Please make sure to subscribe so you can get updates when new videos come out. And then, of course, if you want to connect with some of your peers, we do have the Fourlane QuickBooks Enterprise Facebook group, so you can go join that. We always mention our on-demand support, basically because our customers frequently tell us, we didn't know you guys did this. And so if you are sick of calling Intuit support, QuickBooks support, just like your IT person, you don't call Microsoft, you can call us instead of QuickBooks. Okay, preparing for a conversion. Okay, conversion, new file setup, change in process. So we say conversion, it's kind of all encompassing. Moving data out of one database, eliminating the workflows in that database, and setting it up in a new database, which is usually QuickBooks. Not always. Sometimes we're doing QuickBooks and, right? QuickBooks and Webgility, QuickBooks and Field Service Management, QuickBooks and Bill.com. I mean, there's so many, but QuickBooks and. How do we prepare for that? How do we get ready? Okay. So the first thing in our steps, I'm going to talk a lot about what Fourlane does. I'm not going to show you all the processes. A lot of people on this call have probably been through it before. But the first thing that we want to do is identify the data that needs to be converted. Okay. And I'm going to pretend like we are converting QuickBooks file and needing to do new file setup. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to see what data needs to be converted. So a great way to do these things is you can go in and look through your lists, right? So chart of accounts. How many chart of accounts do we have? Now you can get to the quantity from the F2 key. That's fine. But then what we really want to do is look at, do we need all of these? Is this necessary in our future state? Okay, so that's also one of the things that we want to be paying attention to. So yes, we have 110 chart of accounts. Are we actually using all of them? Or how many are inactive, right? So I don't have any inactive because it's grayed out here. But are we only going to bring over active accounts, not inactive accounts? Same with customers. Are we only going to bring over active customers, not all customers, right? So if some are inactive, are we going to bring those across into our new file or no? So that's the first thing that we really want to take a look at when we're planning for a conversion. What data is going to be brought across? All right, and as you can see from my PowerPoint here, we look at that again. We decide once, we go into workflow, and then we look at that again, okay? Because the things that you need to think about. So if you're in QuickBooks already, I mean, that's a great situation, right? Because I can go in, let's say I don't really care about some of these old customers. I can merge the customers together. There's little bits and pieces, like, chart of accounts, I can merge them together. There's little bits and pieces that we can do for cleanup ahead of time. Where it gets difficult, where you start to cause chaos in conversion, is when you decide you have a 2,000 line chart of accounts, because in other systems, the chart of accounts, like the way that QuickBooks has a class list that sits in a separate database or separate table than your chart of accounts account, or a job list. Sometimes jobs sit in the GL account codes in some systems, right? Your chart of accounts grows extremely long. And so the choices that we have are, we can push the data in to QuickBooks as is in the old system, or we have to do some data manipulation in the between, right? Export from this system, import into the other system. Now, if we're in QuickBooks already, we can do some kind of merging, we can do some cleanup ahead of time so that the data is moving across from one system to the other and it's more smooth. Anytime you have to do any kind of data manipulation in the in-between, right? Export, manipulate data, import it into QuickBooks, that's going to add complexity to your conversion, right? Which complexity equals $ or time. Those two things. $ if you're outsourcing, time if you are doing it internally. Okay. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. A lot of times it can be easy. In some of the other systems, you'll see things like in the GL account code, it's got 1000-100-01A. Right? So the 1000 is the GL account code. The -100 is the department, it's the class. The -01A is the job. So it is kind of easy to separate. You can see that. But then what about, where's the items? What about the items on that job? What about the, so you can kind of get like, I can get some of the data, but can I get all the data that I'm needing? So that's the first thing that we do. We go in, we decide what data needs to be converted. Can we do cleanup first? And then we'll push a little bit. At least Fourlane will push a little bit, and you all should push internally if you're DIYing this. Will the data be apples to apples? Because let's say we are bringing across the 2,000 chart of accounts exactly how it was in the old system. Will that be the way that we're going to use QuickBooks going forward? Because if the answer is no, then why are we bringing this data across, right? If I can't run a comparative P&L, why am I bringing this data across? It's not going to be helpful to me. So we need to consider those things. So first, what data are we bringing? Next, then we go through and we do start from scratch workflow. Now we can come in and just create a workflow, right? Do exactly what you were doing before. That's fine. But this is an opportunity. Anytime you're making a change, it's an opportunity to take a look and say, hey, is what we're doing the most effective, efficient, Are we getting the most data out of our processes that we have, the workflow that we have created? Are we having to key in data multiple places, anywhere? Are we having, all the questions? So what we like to do, we call it design here at Fourlane, is we come in and we say, all right, how do customers contact you? Do you quote customers? How do you quote customers? What data goes on that quote? What happens after quote? Do we convert to purchase order? What is a quote for? Do we even need a quote, right? So you go through all of that. Estimates used, yes. Not using sales orders. Okay, let's get rid of it. Estimates go to invoices. Perfect. Right? Invoices are created from estimates, sometimes also created from time and materials billing on jobs, right? By checking that little billable box. Great. So we go through and we make sure to enable on all of the different transactions that we're going to be using, the fields that we will be using going forward. Okay? Because that tells us in the old system, it went here. In the new system, it's going to go here. And we can map those across if we need to, or choose to exclude that data because we don't need to bring it across. Okay. So that's the secondary step, getting through workflow. What is the workflow going to be? And when we do this, we recommend going in. So in the construction space, as an example, we recommend going in and setting up. So you set up the estimate as if you are doing it manually. Set up the estimate, set up all the bills for the estimate, create all the invoices, receive the payments, do everything for that job so that we know it mimics exactly what was in the old system. Look at the reports, make sure the reporting looks okay, because that's how we're going to know if we have everything that we need to bring across. Okay? And then, as it mentions here, we go back and revisit the data that needs to be converted. If the data is not needed, don't bring it across. You can hopefully, not all systems, right? You can hopefully always go back and pull up that data in your old system. Right? Or you can pull up the reports that you exported from your old system to see that data. But if we're not going to be using it going forward, maybe we don't need to talk about converting it. Okay, now we're ready. We said, here's the workflow we're going to have. Here's the data that needs to be converted, and that data is going to be generally two things, right? The first thing is going to be lists. It does matter the order that you transfer lists in. The second thing is going to be either balances and or transactions. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, when we come in to a customer, as an example, if I'm transferring a customer, first of all, if I want to add a job, the customer has to exist first. Right? I can't add a job to a customer that doesn't exist. So customer must exist first. Then if we look at the customer list in here, I have, what is my price level? I'm going to import price levels. Price level must exist first. So that has to be imported prior to importing customers and jobs. If I'm going to have sales reps, those have to be here first before importing customers and jobs. Right? Customer types, custom fields. All of this information has to be set up in the system prior to me importing customers. Okay? So it does matter the order that you go in. Otherwise, if you import all your customers in first, and then you have to go import sales reps, you have to do some matching, right? And matching is never fun because the job name in our old system was BCS0025. In our new system is Big City Store number 0025 because QuickBooks treats things differently. Now I have to match so that I can get the correct sales rep into the correct customer. So you want to do it in order. Okay, so lists come in first. The first list that you're going to import is chart of accounts, right? Because chart of accounts feeds into all these other lists. We're going to start to tick away. Again, the suggestion is always do it manually first, then you know what you need to add. So now we have all our lists in the system, right? Like you can't even import items as an example. You have to, if you look at an item, I have to have unit of measure first. I have to have my chart of accounts, obviously, first. I have to have my vendors first, so I can have a preferred vendor. You have to be aware of what needs to be there before starting to import those lists in. Okay. Now, when it comes to importing to QuickBooks, we have a couple of videos in our YouTube channel about how to import. QuickBooks does have some built-in importing tools that I just wanted to cover. So we do have the ability to paste from Excel. So if you have in your customer list, your items list, you can go to the Excel button and go to paste from Excel. And once you're in here, you can see the lists that you can paste in. And one of the weird little quirks about QuickBooks is there are several ways to import data. None of the ways fully cover all the data you can import, except for using an external tool. So here we've got customers, vendors, service items, inventory parts, so separate, right? Even though they're on the same list, they import it separately. Non-inventory parts, inventory assemblies, and vendor items, which is vendor price list, multiple price lists for vendors. These are little lists that we can import. Then, of course, you can come in, if I'm importing inventory parts, and customize columns and see which field we can import into. These ones like custom fields. These are ones I don't have set up yet, right? There's also, under utilities, we have an import from Excel. So you can import some basic customers. They give you a pre-formatted spreadsheet. You can also do an advanced import over here. I see a lot of customers when we start talking about being able to import in. Oh, great! I can just go import my customer list in the QuickBooks, and I need to bring from my CRM system all my QuickBooks, all my customers in. You want to be aware still, right? Is this usable data? Importing a whole bunch of customers is not going to help your business if it's not usable data. Don't just go throw them in there because now you've discovered the way to do it. Okay. There also is import, utilities import, IIF files, right? IIF files are a file format that was very old. It was written when QuickBooks originally was written, or back in 2003, 2004. Not updated. We usually do not recommend, we've never recommended importing IIF files. Also, it's really annoying because you have to go into single user mode, right? So you have to kick everybody out, all these things. It's got a funky file format, like transactions have, it's not a singular row for the transaction, it'll be multiple rows. For the list, it's a singular row, unless you get into like group items and assembly items, but they're kind of a funky format. So anyway, IIF files, they did change this a couple years ago. They made it that the IIF file import now goes through the API, which should prevent corruption from coming into the file, should being the keyword, because it hasn't been tested enough for me to say yes, because we still don't import IIF files. Okay, and you'll see here that I can import journal entries. That's because I'm in the Accountants Edition, and that's not really importing journal entries. It's importing, like I'm logged in as the accountant. I have the accountant's copy. I create a journal entry, and I send it from my accountant's copy of your file into your file. So it's not like an Excel journal entry import, because people ask for that all the time. We also have in here, in the accountant's toolbox, which we've talked about several times, because you're in QuickBooks Enterprise, you do have the ability to have access to the external accountant role. You can assign that to yourself as a user. And under that, it should be under company for you, but under that, you're going to see the batch enter transactions. So there is some ability to batch enter open balances, right? Not just lists, we've been talking about lists, but you can also batch enter open balances like open invoices, open bills in a pretty simplified form, not detailed. But notice there's no estimates, sales orders, anything here. There are tools out there that you can import on your own. So the one that's most commonly used is actually owned by Right Networks. It's called Transaction Pro Importer. There's another one called Saasant. I think that's how you say it, Saasant. We're not going to go into how those tools work. They both have their benefits and downfalls. But converting data is very frustrating, right? If you're not doing it all day, every day. So the DIY thing, definitely make sure that you have your little stress toy there and definitely make sure you do it manually first, and then that you go in and test before doing importing and then do more importing. Okay, so next we got our lists transferred in. We learned a new way to transfer over lists and bring them into the system in order. The next thing that we're going to talk about is balances, so bringing over balances. We talk about bringing over open balances. Most of the time, what people want is going to be open inventory, right? So bringing in your inventory quantity on hand and value as of a certain point. Okay. So this is usually, this report here is a big one, inventory valuation summary. How many do I have on hand? What's the average cost? Therefore, what's the asset value? So open inventory as of a certain point. Open accounts receivable, right? So using your AR aging summary report. Okay, so I'm sorry, not AR aging summary. I'm sorry, that's the wrong report. AR aging detail report, because then I can see each of the transactions and their open balance. Now this is a balance report, right? So if they made a partial payment, as an example, this is going to show me the open balance, not the original transaction amount and balance. So open AR, open AP, come down to vendors and do AP aging detail, same thing. Right, here are all the bills and their open balance. I'm not importing which GL account codes they go to. When we do open balances, the of AP as an example, the credit hits accounts payable, as long as it's a positive amount, right? Credit hits accounts payable, and the debit hits an open balance clearing account, right? We're not hitting P&L at all when you're importing open balances. The offset is always some kind of clearing account. Now, a couple things that we've learned over the years when it comes to moving from other systems into QuickBooks so you don't pull your hair out. And we have one of our programmers, the first time he did a conversion, when our programmers come on board, they learn how to do conversions first, because that helps them to understand how QuickBooks functions, right? It's a lot of data movement. All that data movement, you get all the quirks of QuickBooks that pop up and tell you, you can't do this, I can't do that, I can't accept data this way. So they learn how to do conversions, and probably 95% of the time when clients are coming from an outside system that has multiple ledger accounts, meaning that their AP ledger, right, sits separate from their general ledger. So they post to AP, and then they close out the batch, and the batch posts to the GL. 95% of the time, what shows on that balance sheet for what the balance is in AP compared to what the details of AP says from the AP ledger do not tie out. So that's AP, AR, inventory, very standard. And so what do we do with that? We run it through a clearing account, right? So we can see details show me 138,806.63. I'm going to import the details because these are all the bills that are open. The balance sheet shows me 150, 500, whatever. right? So when I look at the balance sheet, there's going to be a variance between what my trial balance says and what my details say. And then we're just going to have to figure out what we're going to do with that variance, right? So that's why we run it through a clearing account, so we can see the variance and decide, is it material? Does it matter? But it is very rare that the subledger accounts tie out to the GL when customers are coming from outside systems that have separate GL accounts. Okay, so just awareness is key, and then you just have to deal with, you have to say, what am I going to do with this amount afterwards? So open AR, open AP, open inventory. And then the other thing that most people usually bring across then is just trial balance information. Now in QuickBooks, you can't run a trial balance account month over month, right? But what you can run is you can run a profit and loss account for all time, total by month. So you can get month over month if you want to bring that in. You can do it by quarter. If you don't care about month over month, you can do it by year, right? If we're just going to run comparative financials year over year, not drill down into the details by month, then just do it year over year. The least amount of data we bring across, the better when it comes to any kind of conversion. So we do P&L by month, and P&L by month is posted a little bit differently, right? Because it does not have to be reversed out, or it's not a total that's added up for all time. So if I'm posting this profit and loss as an example, I'm just posting $50,000 here, $80,000 there. Whereas in a balance sheet, which we also usually are importing, in a balance sheet, when you're looking at a total by month, you can't just post 49,000, 36,000, 51,000, because this is the balance. So you have to post the variance, right? So you post the original one, which is 49,000. Then you post a negative 13,000-ish, right, to get down to 36,000. Then you post a positive 15,500-ish to get back up there, right? So you have to post the difference when you're moving along balance sheet. Okay, it can get quite complicated. So that's the standard for importing open balances. Now, beyond that, other open balances that people would want to consider are going to be open non-posting transactions. Estimates. What are my open estimates? Now, when you post open estimates in the system, you need those details most likely. You need to know which items are open. Which jobs are they open for? So it's going to be a detailed transaction at that point. But it's a non-posting transaction. So that matters. Open sales orders, open purchase orders, same thing. All those non-posting transactions are something that we usually get people wanting to import when they're setting up a new file. I have had people want to import all sales orders for all time before, and the answer is usually no. Why? Because sales orders are a non-posting transaction. They turned into an invoice. So if we really need an all-time posting of something, then we're going to, import the invoices, not the sales orders and the invoices. It's overkill. You don't need the non-posting transactions. Most likely. Sometimes people win, right? We will, here at Fourlane, we'll do what the customer asks us. But so then the next level is going into detail, right? The best case scenario when people want 100% detail moved over in their file is to run and import everything as a journal entry. The problem with details, when we're importing from another system into QuickBooks, the problem with details is the old system is not what the new system is going to be. So that in-between mapping that we talked about in the very beginning gets super complicated. I mean, on the list, right, we have, a customer list, we've got, 20 fields. On an invoice, we have all the fields, and we have all the lines and those fields on those lines, all the fields on those lines. It can get quite complicated. But importing invoice detail is not that bad. That's not that bad. The problem comes in and then what, right? So I have an invoice. I used a credit memo to pay off some of the invoice. I transferred credits from a different job to this job to pay off some of the invoice. I had a sales tax charge, and then I had to void the sales tax, and then like all the after the invoice. That's what causes the chaos. So again, pushing back to only import the data that's actually needed. Why do you care about the details of what happened to this invoice and how this invoice went to a $0 balance? Is that something that's going to help you make business decisions? The answer is no, don't import it. All right, so transfer balances or transactions. That's what we talked about in here. And then the last step is always going to be some QC, right? So QC should be able to tie out, this is what existed in our old system, this is what is in our new system, and if there are any variances, they should be explained, right? And all of that should be documented so that in the future, when we're trying to figure out, like, what was that $12,000 difference? Why do we adjust $12,000 out of AP and write it off? We have the backup documentation for that. Okay, I am going to ask a question real quick. Who is planning on doing a new file setup anytime soon? Please raise your hand. Let us know. Let us know, because I'm fascinated by how many times. A lot of our clients do this every couple of years, right? It's just data management, archiving data, making sure that our database isn't getting too large. A lot of clients do this every couple of years with us. Most of them don't DIY it. They just call us and do it. But I'm fascinated to know who is planning on doing either a conversion or starting a new file anytime soon. All right, as always, we're here at Fourlane trying to get you data to make decisions on your business. We do that through lots of different services, including product conversion, which we talked about today. That's all I got for you guys. I ran over a little bit again. I just seem to be always over by a couple minutes. I hope you were able to take away something key, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Thank you.